Hi everyone, this is LuxDose, and today I'm bringing you a class video guide for Subtlety Rogue. Yes, I said it right. So, we'll be covering talents, stats priority, trinket, Azerite traits, race, rotation, and macros. If you're ready, let's get right into it. Okay, so we're gonna begin by talking about talents. Let's open up the talent window and we'll discuss every single row and choice you need to make. In the first row, for the 15 talent, you'll always pick Find Weakness. Currently for Mythic, so for AoE, and for single target, Find Weakness is the best option, especially if there is a priority target that needs to die quickly, which is what Subtlety is very good at. Gloomblade and Weapon Master can definitely have some use in PvP, but this is a PvE focused guide. So we'll be keeping up with Find Weakness for pretty much every situation right now. So this is going to be it for the first row. Second row, you have to choose between Night Stalker, Subterfuge, and Shadow Focus. Shadow Focus, again, is the best alternative for both AoE and single target. If you don't pick Shadow Focus, you're going to find yourself starving for energy. So this is very needed for both spec, for Mythic and single target. I keep referring to AoE as Mythic because currently in BFA, that's pretty much all there is to do. Some Mythic and Heroic, and there's a lot of trash and a lot of AoE. So this is what my current talent set manager is being used on. So if you guys want to get this add-on, quick side note, this is a very cool add-on that lets you add PvP build right into it. Okay. For the third row, it's going to be between Deeper Stratagem and Mark for Death. Currently on single target, Mark for Death is pulling ahead in damage, but you can always sim yourself. When I say sim yourself, I'm talking mostly about raid bots. This is a website that you really need to put in your bookmarks, and it's going to help you out knowing what talent to use, what gear to use, what is your stats weight, and other things that you can improve on your characters. So it's not only for rogues, it's for any DPS class mostly. For tank and healer, this is not really the best option, I would say. For tank, it's mostly just gonna let you know your best DPS option and everything, and for healer, this is not really working. So this is really a DPS improvement tool, so I really recommend it. You need to get an add-on called Simulation Craft, which is gonna allow you to type SimC, so /SimC in World of Warcraft, and this is gonna let you get your entire data for your character. Then you can copy it, okay, go back into RaidBot and paste it right there. You can always import it from the armory, but that's not always going to be up to date. So I really recommend doing it with the Simulation Craft add-on. And now you can compare talents. So you can compare, for example, right now, I just copied my characters using Mark for Death. So I can build my exact same build, but using Deeper Stratagem instead. And I can compare which one is going to do the most damage on a single target scenario. So we're going to go further into that on another video, but this is just to let you know that you should start simming your characters so you can try and find which talent, what gear, what stats is best for you. Currently, I'm always playing Mark for Death. So whether it's a single target situation or Mythic, Dungeon, whatever, especially in Dungeon and Mythic, you can have a lot of opportunity for resets for Mark for Death. And being only 30-second cooldown makes it very, very strong. So I really recommend it. For the next row, you're going to be choosing between mostly Cheat Death and Soothing Darkness, because elusiveness in PvE is not that great unless you know that there's a big damage incoming that you can avoid, but even then that's going to cost you energy, and that's gonna hurt your DPS a lot. So it's gonna go between Cheat Death and Soothing Darkness. Cheat Death right now, currently, it's usually the best option for Mythic Plus, especially when content gets very hard and when you when there is things that can actually kill you. When things start to get dangerous, I would say Cheat Death becomes very good. But I kind of like Soothing Darkness, especially if you're pugging. It's a lot of sustained healing, and it's very good for questing. But most of the time, you're going to go with cheat death, especially as the expansion progress. Content is going to get harder and harder, especially with Mythic Plus, so cheat death is going to be the way to go. Between Shot in the Dark, Night Terror, and Prey on the Weak. Currently, Night Terror is going to be the way to go in Mythic, because you're going to be able to slow ads, so that's going to help your tank be able to kite mobs and stuff like that. But if you have a Frost Mage, or if you have somebody else in the group that's already doing that, you can maybe go for Shot in the Dark or Prey on the Weak, depending, like, if you need quick CC. So these two rows are really situational and on your own taste and preference. So I'm gonna leave those. We call those zero talent row. It means that you can choose anything you want. It's not gonna affect your DPS. Those are only utilities. Okay. The 90 level row. You can choose between Dark Shadow and Enveloping Shadow. Alacrity right now is not really good for Subtlety, so we're not even gonna talk about it. Okay, so just leave it out now. It's not really competitive. So Dark Shadow is mostly used with a secret technique build, which is considered an AoE build. So these two are going to go well together in Mythic. So Mythic 0, Mythic Plus, Heroic, even questing, all that good stuff. This is going to be a very, very good build for AoE. So what's Dark Shadow doing? It's increasing your damage by 25% while in Shadow Dance. So that's very good. Enveloping Shadow is going to give you an extra charge of Shadow Dance, so 1 extra charge, and it's going to reduce its cooldown by 1 extra second per combo point spent every time you spend combo point, because that's the mechanic you have already built into Subtlety. There you go. So your finishing move reduces the remaining cooldown on Shadow Dance for each combo point that you spend. So this is going to increase that even more. So you're gonna get a lot of Shadow Dance opportunity. This is the recommended way for single target. So for pure single target, Enveloping Shadows is very, very strong. But again, you can go ahead and sim yourself, because currently I'm 344. When I was 340 to 330, I was getting different result. So Dark Shadow was actually better on single target, and Enveloping Shadow was lacking behind. But right now, Enveloping Shadow is rising ahead on single target. So make sure you sim yourself. But if you're doing any kind of content that has AoE, then Dark Shadow kind of takes the lead up there. So Dark Shadow is going to be very useful. So you can choose between pretty much single target build, AoE build. That pretty much comes down to it, right? And the last row. So we're going to talk about it. So Master of Shadow, Secret Technique, and Shuriken Tornado. Currently, just like I said, so Secret Technique is going to be your AoE talent. Even though Shuriken Tornado should be your AoE build, Secret Technique is very, very strong. When you line up everything, so find weakness on priority target, Nightblade, Shadow Dance, Symbols of Death, and you land a huge Secret Technique, it does a lot of damage. You're going to spike up and burst. It's crazy. It's very, very good. And it does good also on single target. So it simply replace Eviscerate in your opener or any sequence. You kind of want to try to line up in your Symbol of Death and Shadow Dance window, but sometimes it's not going to line up. It's not a big deal. You don't have to treat this the way you treated Death from Above. Sorry, got a little I forgot what it was. So you don't have to treat it like Death from Above. It's not like the finisher, but it's a very, very, very good finisher, and it's especially strong in an AoE situation. Master of Shadow is going to be better on pure single target, though. So even though Secret Technique Dark Shadow does pretty good on single target, the pure single target build, mostly for raiding, I would say, because right now in Mythic, you don't really want to get into this spec unless you get into some Tyrannical. Then maybe this might become good, but even then, trash is still important. So we're gonna have to see. It's still early in BFA for this to be a discussion, but now you have an idea on what talent to pick in what situation. Okay, now we'll be talking about stats priority. Stats priority is going to be a lot based on your simulation. So yet again, I invite you to download the add-on Simulation Craft so that you can get access to your current character sheet, if you want to call it. So you copy that, you hit OK, and you go back into raid bots. Just like the previous segment, you're going to go ahead and go into stat weight, and you can paste that in right there. You can also, of course, load it from the armory, but just like I told you, that can be out of date sometimes. Okay. So the way that this works is we're just going to go a little in depth here, just so you can do that on your own. Basically, you want to leave pretty much everything by default. You just have to choose what kind of fights you want to sim on. So pretty much, do you want a patchwork fight? This means it's a single boss, but you can also configure it to be as many bosses you want. So if you ever get a 2-boss fight, you can sim for that. But usually it will be single target, so patchwork or heretic ad cleave. This is gonna simulate pretty well AoE situation, like in Mythic. You can also do patchwork 3 or 4 boss over a short duration. That's gonna mimic some AoE pool in Mythic. So this right there is gonna mimic AoE pool, and then you can ask the sim to not cast Bloodlust, for example, because you don't really want to sim Bloodlust on a AoE pack, but this is going to be a good way of simming yourself on both AoE and single target. So for now, let's go patchwork, 1 boss, and over a 4 to 5 minute fight. So 5 and 6 minutes or more going to be some raid boss, and 3, 4, 5 minutes or more going to be in tune with mythic bosses. So then you can choose if you want to Bloodlust, what buff do you want to sim with. So you can do no buff, optimal raid buff, and then you can pretty much leave everything else on default and generate stats weight. So we're going to wait ahead for raid bots to do its calculation. Right now, the recommended setting for single target for Subtlety Rogue will be crit and aced. So crit and aced are very, very good for Subtlety Rogue. So there you go. For my specific characters, aced is going to increase my damage a bit more than critical strike, okay? Weapon DPS and agility is almost going to always be better than anything else in the stats. But currently, after agility, it's aced, crit, versus mastery, and you can see that mastery is pretty low. 1.3 is pretty low compared to 1.6 if you want to look at the grand scheme of things. Okay, so this is my current simulation for single target. So you need to do that for your own characters so that you can find what your stat weight is and what is the best stats for you. What I invite you to do is, once that's done, you have something called pawn string, okay? So you can copy this right there, go into World of Warcraft, and install an add-on called pawn, okay? So you open pawn up, so you can do that, click right there, or do /pawn, and you can import your string. So what this is going to do is you can click import, and you paste the string that you just copied to your clipboard. You do OK. There you go. So this is going to be called Subtlety Raid Bot. So I'm simply going to rename it Subtlety Single Target. And as you can see, I already have AoE and I already have single target. So if I mouse over a piece of gear, it's going to tell me right now, this ring is better for you in single target by 3%. It's going to increase your damage, your overall DPS by 3%. So you can do that with every single piece of gear. Of course, it's not going to keep track of Azerite Trait. It's only going to look at stats on the item, okay? So I can see that this ring currently for single target is better for me, okay? It's going to also check for your AoE if you imported both string. So you can come back in here, there you go, come back, and do the same thing for heretic ad cleave, okay? So we're going to try it out. Let's do no bloodlust, okay? Actually, let's do patchwork 4 boss, 1 minute, no bloodlust, okay? Generate stats with. This is going to take a little more time. It's going to have to do a little bit more iteration, so it's going to take a little more time, but we'll still wait for the result real quick. Mastery and crit should come out on top for subtlety. For pretty much a lot of you. Okay, so mastery by a lot, almost 4 point of DPS per point of mastery, and crit is at 3. So 3 point of DPS per point of mastery, and ace is at the very, very bottom. What does this tell you? Okay, so if you're currently aiming to do Mythic right now, you're trying to do some Mythic content, you want to push it, you want to push in Mythic Plus in the upcoming weeks, well, you either have to choose, are you going full single target, or are you going AoE? Or are you doing something in between? This is currently what I'm doing right now. So right now this is a leftover ace gem, but currently all of my ancients and gem are in critical strike. I still need to improve that gem quality. I have an agility gem also in my cloak, so make sure you always get your agility gem, because agility is going to be better than any other stats. But pretty much everything else I'm trying to focus on critical strike. Because if you remember correctly, critical strike was my second best stat, very close to aced for a single target, and it's my second best stats also, very close to mastery. So overall, critical strike is your best stats overall. But mastery is pulling ahead for one reason, and that's because of Shuriken combo. So every time you Shuriken Storm, you're going to increase the damage of your next Eviscerate, and this is going to scale up very, very well with your mastery, and Secret Technique is also going to scale very well with mastery. So those, you need to keep that in mind. But what I recommend right now is going for crit. So right now, crit is a very good and reliable stat, so I recommend that you test it out, sim yourself, and see what is best for your rogue. Even though I'm doing a video right now, things might change in the future, and this video will probably be outdated at some point. But Blood Mallet is currently doing a very good job at stocking up on data for all of the trinkets, the race, Azerite Trait, and a lot more. So currently I'm tracking data for Subtlety Rogue. Okay, so you can simply get the link in the description below. The website is called Blood Mallet. And you can find data for every single class, every spec, well, DPS mostly, and you can check out what's good for your current spec. So you can go ahead and check out, for example, Trinkets, Azerite Trait, Race, Secondary Distribution, and what type of fight do you want to simulate those in. So Patchwork or Heretic Adclave, just like I showed you earlier in Raidbot. So Patchwork and single target, and Heretic Adclave is AoE situation. Okay, so let's start with Trinket. Currently, the best Trinket you can get, it's very pricey, but it's very good. So the Dark Moon Phantom, it's a very, very good Trinket, and it's going to currently be better than anything you can currently find in the game. So I think to be able to get a better Trinket than this, at the moment, you're going to have to wait for Uldir Raid. Even if this Trinket proc... So, for example, if you mouse over, it says that it's 355 because that's the only item level you can get this trinket at. So, it's going to be a 355 item level trinket. If you compare it with the second best trinket, which is called the Gale Caller's Boon, you can check the DPS difference between a 325, a 340, and a 355 version of that trinket, okay? So, the blue line is going to be the 355 version, so you want to compare it with this one. And pretty much right now, it's over DPSing every single trinket by a large margin, okay? But most of your trinkets are probably going to land at around 340, 355 if you're very lucky, okay? So if you don't want to spend money on the Dark Moon trinket and you're trying to farm trinkets, make sure you check this list. What you do is you simply go in here and you check which one is the best, or which one fits your playstyle. Because, for example, the Gale Caller's Boon is very good because it places a ward on the ground. But it increases your ace while you stand in it. If you don't stand in it, this trinket is useless, okay? So, if you're in a fight that requires a lot of movement, or any of those situations where you know you're not going to be able to stand within the ward, then this trinket doesn't become very good. This simulation tracks that you are standing in for the full duration, okay? So this trinket, for example, could be pretty good also, but you need to auto-attack the same target for 10 attacks in a row. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full benefit, okay? So you can just go down the list and try to figure that out for yourself. Currently, myself, I've gotten the Dark Moon Fair trinket, and I've been lucky enough to get this trinket 340 in a Mythic 0 run, and it's pretty good because you don't have to worry about anything. It's always gonna result in good DPS because Mastery, Ace, and Crit are pretty good stats for Rogue. So of course, if you get Mastery in a single target fight, it's not gonna be as good, but overall, it's gonna yield you some good DPS, but it's a bit RNG. You can try to check which one would suit your playstyle, or just go for the best one and try to optimize it. So this is the list of all the current trinket right now, so I really recommend that you check that out. Okay, let's move on with Azerite Trait. Okay, so you're gonna be able to check for trait in tier 1 and tier 2, so it's the first ring and the second ring, pretty much. And you'll be able to compare which are the best. Right now, Blade in the Shadow is very, very good. Okay, and you'll be able to see how much DPS it's giving you if you stack it. So if you have one iteration of it, it's going to give you around 700 DPS. If you have two, if you have three. Okay, so if you have three, you're very lucky. I got none right now, and I'm at pretty high level for the current content, and I still don't have any Blades in the Shadows. So this is currently the best stats, the best trait for a single target. So if you're lucky enough to get this one, keep it. That's for sure. But right now, that's only going to be very, very good for Mythic Boss high priority target. So high priority target and Mythic Boss, you're going to do a lot of damage on those. But on Trash, you're going to spam Shuriken Storm. So that's not going to do any good for you. This is why you can also check an Heretic Ad Cleave, and you're going to see which trait are the best in AoE. So this system is you're going to need to have a set for AoE and a set for single target, okay? So in this video, I can't really tell you which trait are the best. Well, those are the three best. So try to aim for those if you want to do great single target damage. If you want to perform in AoE, get those, okay? And you can also see per piece. So you can see that currently this is the most yielding DPS piece. So this is the letter engineering goggles. So they have two very good traits. So these are going to yield the most DPS compared to any of those pieces. You can see the shoulder. So that's a very, very good way of trying to check out for that. Of course, you need to go Patchwork or Heretic Ad Cleave. So for single target, the Google are not the best. The goggle are not the best. It's the Cowl of Dark Portent. Okay, so make sure you check that out. Make sure you keep this website in your favorites, in your bookmarks, and check it often and try to compare which piece of gear do you need to farm for knowing which trait you need to stack. So check that out. Okay, and then we're gonna go into races. Okay, so currently it's Void Elf for Subtlety. So Void Elf does a little bit more damage, but it's let's be honest. So Void Elf and Nightborn, the difference is pretty low. We're talking like 100, 150, 160 DPS. Okay, so we'll now be covering the rotation part for Subtlety Rogue, the single target rotation part of the guide. Okay, so right now I'm currently using a Mythic plus Mythic, so AoE situation build, but it's not going to make a lot of difference compared to a single target build with Enveloping Shadows and Master of Shadows. But I'm still going to show you the difference, okay? So Secret Technique, if you pick it, you simply replace one of your Eviscerate. If you know that a lot of ads are coming, so a big AoE situation is about to occur, Secret Technique, you might want to hold it a little to have Secret Technique do as much damage as it can, but otherwise you simply replace it in your opener sequence, and in the regular rotation you simply replace Eviscerate with it, okay? Dark Shadow is going to be preferred for AoE situation, but you're still gonna, so if you're doing a Mythic dungeon, you're probably gonna be using this right here. And the rotation is not going to change much from Enveloping Shadows, but we're still going to cover it and its differences. Mark for Death, so Mark for Death and Deeper Stratagem are going to change some stuff. So since Deeper Stratagem increase your amount of combo point to 6, your finisher are going to be 5 to 6 combo point. And if you don't have it, well, it's 4 to 5 before you use a finisher. Mark for Death is going to be used outside of Shadow Dance and usually before the pull. You can use it 18 to 20 seconds before the pull, and that's going to go for optimal cooldown usage and combo point generation. Okay? The rest is not going to change much. Find Weakness. If you have Find Weakness, you want to keep your Vanish to be able to reapply it. Okay? So if you don't have any Shadow Dance available soon, you want to Vanish and refresh your Find Weakness when there is 1 to 2 seconds left on it, and you'll be able to extend it to 10 to 12 seconds. That's going to increase a lot your current damage. Okay, so let's talk about Subtlety. Okay, so the core rotation ability of Subtlety is Shadow Dance, and of course, Symbol of Death. You want to try to pair these as often as possible, because this is going to be the big damage. This is going to be the source of your damage. Okay, when you're in Shadow Dance, you're going to be able to use Shadow Strike. This does a lot of damage and generate 2 combo point per use. So over Backstab, it's a very, very nice increase. If you have, if you're lucky enough and you have the Azerite trait that increases the damage of Shadow Strike, this becomes incredibly powerful. Okay, so your goal when in Shadow Dance is to do as many Shadow Strike as possible without overcapping on combo points. Okay. So generally, that will be 2 Shadow Strike per finisher. So Shadow Strike, Eviscerate, or Shadow Strike, Secret Technique. You have another finisher, though, which is called Nightblade. You want to keep that up at all time. So it needs to be up every time that you enter a Shadow Dance Symbol of Death, part of the rotation. This is very, very important, but you don't want to refresh it while you're in that state, because that's going to be a DPS loss. But you should reapply it if it's... So, for example, if you're going to go into a Shadow Dance Symbol of Death, part of the rotation, Symbol of Death lasts for 10 seconds. So you want to make sure you have at least 10 seconds left or more on Nightblade. Otherwise, you're going to fall off at the end, and you're going to lose some DPS. You're going to lose some damage. Okay? This is going to be more clear as we go deeper into the rotation. You also have a cooldown called Shadow Blades. Okay? So Shadow Blades makes your combo point generator deals additional damage, but also generate an additional combo point for 20 seconds. This is very, very powerful. It will make your opener one of the best and strongest opener in the game currently. You will kill things quicker than they can say your name. Okay, so Shadow Strike is going to generate 3 combo points per use. So this is why the opener with Shadow Dance, Symbol of Death, and Shadow Blade is very, very strong. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice your opener. Your goal in your opener is, of course, right before you're about to pull, you want to have a DPS potion activated. So currently I'm poor, so I'm using Potion of Prolonged Power because the other potions are pretty expensive. And I'm using Shadow Blade right as I'm about to pull. Okay, so these two are going to be used at the same time. You can, of course, use a macro, which will use both. Okay, so this macro is available in my macro video, so you can check that out. It's simply using the right DPS cooldown for the spec that I'm currently in and using my potion. Okay, so as soon as I use that, it's going to also use my DPS potion. The first thing I want to do when I enter combat after using my cooldown is going to be to cast 1 Shadow Strike, at least, okay? This is going to put me to 3 combo points, remember, because of Shadow Blade. And then I want to apply Nightblade, okay? So Nightblade is going to be a 3 combo point Nightblade, or 4 if you're lucky with one of your auto attack, because of this. Your auto attack have a chance to generate a combo point and also give you some energy. So you might do a 3 or 4 combo point, or if you're able to mark for death 18 to 20 seconds before the pull, you're gonna have a 5-second Nightblade, sorry. So this is gonna be a 5-second, a 5 combo point, sorry, duration. So that's gonna be pretty long. And as soon as this is applied, you want to go into your rotation. Okay, so Shadow Dance is 5-second duration, and Symbol of Death is 10. So you figured out that you can use Shadow Dance twice in the duration of your Symbol of Death, okay? So your goal, as soon as this is applied, is to enter a Shadow Dance Symbol of Death, then use as many Shadow Strike as you can, so 2 before you cap, and then spend it with Eviscerate, and then you go back. to Shadow Strike and Eviscerate. But as soon as Shadow Dance is going to fall off, you want to reactivate it to make sure you are in Shadow Dance for the entire duration of Symbol of Death. Okay? So this seems complicated, but I'll show it to you. It's actually very, very simple. So make sure you watch the rotation. It's going to appear here so you can see all of my actions. There you go. So you can see every button that I press. It's going to show up right there. So we're going to go into the rotation. So cooldown, potion, and then we're going to go into Shadow Strike, Nightblade, Shadow Dance, Symbol of Death, Shadow Strike, Eviscerate, Shadow Strike, Shadow Dance, Eviscerate, because it's going to fall off. You're going to see. Okay? Let's go. Okay, so there you go. I was a bit energy starved at the end, but you're usually able to do a last Eviscerate in there, okay? And normally you would have replaced one of your Eviscerate with Secret Technique, but I don't want to cleave right now because there is dummy around me. So we're going to go ahead and do that one more time as soon as Shadow Blade is off, and you'll be able to see it. I'll replace Eviscerate with Secret Technique so you can see the difference using this build, okay? So we'll just wait for the cooldown to come back up. Okay, so we're simply going to simulate a 20-second before pull, so I'm going to use Mark for Death before pull. I'm going to wait it to be at 10 seconds, so that's going to be like a 20 pull timer, 18, 20 almost, okay? As soon as it hit 10, 12, I'm going to pull using Shadow Blade, Potion, and go into my optimal rotation. I'm going to be using Secret Technique as my first opener. There you go. So that was an optimal opener. So sometimes after doing a backstab or, I mean, a Shadow Strike, you're going to end up with 4 combo points. So doing another Shadow Strike is going to result in a DPS loss. So you want to use it at 4 instead of doing it another time. So your rotation is not always going to be set in stone. It's not always going to be 2 Shadow Strike before doing your finisher. Sometimes it's only going to be 1. You're going to be doing an auto attack, and that's going to give you a remaining combo point. Then you need to use a finisher. But that should yield into some pretty high DPS number. Right now, it's cleaving on those target dummies. So I'm simply going to pick Master of Shadow. I'm going to keep Dark Shadow because we're going to talk about Enveloping Shadow in a couple of seconds. But with Master of Shadow, you can do some nice things too with single target. Okay, so I'm going to go back and stealth. We're not going to wait for Shadow Blade this time. We're simply going to pop Mark for Death. And we're gonna wait a couple seconds, and we're gonna go into an opener. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna apply Shadow Strike Nightblade because we're gonna have some remaining combo points. So Nightblade is still gonna be pretty powerful. Just gonna wait for Shadow Dance to come back off cooldown, and we'll be doing the rotation again. Make sure you check everything here to make sure you're following along. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna go into the opener. So I'll use Potion still. There you go. Okay, so I did as many Shadow Strike as I could. I'm gonna refresh my blade right there, and now I can use my Mark for Death to do another Eviscerate or whatever. You could use it to refresh your Nightblade also, and then you just spam some Eviscerate and refresh Nightblade while waiting for Symbol of Death to come back up. It's coming back up. I'm going to reapply it, and we're going to go into 1 dance. So this is going to be only 1 dance for the duration of your second Symbol of Death, okay? So usually I would have wanted to have this be up for the entire time of Symbol of Death, but it's sometimes hard to gauge because I currently have some trait that increases the duration of my Symbol of Death by 0.5 seconds every time I backstab or Shadow Strike. Okay, so right now I'm gonna have a double. So if you keep spamming hard enough your abilities and you keep doing a good amount of finisher, you're gonna be able to Shadow Dance twice on your second Symbol of Death. Okay? So during your opener with Shadowblade, you're going to do a lot of finishers. So you're going to be able to do Shadow Dance, Symbol of Death. You're going to be able to use your 2 Shadow Dance in your first Symbol of Death. Then your second one is going to use only 1 Shadow Dance. So you're going to do 1 Shadow Dance for the duration of your Symbol of Death. And then on your third Symbol of Death, you should be back at 2 Shadow Dance, okay? This is going to change with Enveloping Shadow. With Enveloping Shadow, you should have almost always 2 Shadow Dance for your Symbol of Death, okay? So we're going to go back into it. We're going to do the opener sequence once again with Shadowblade up. So we're going to leave out Mark for Death out of this, or we can just use it, you know? Just have it there ready to use, since we don't need it for the rotation afterwards, because we are doing simply an opener rotation. Okay, so I'm just going to let it fall off just to make sure we're on the same track. Okay, so 12 seconds. There you go, Shadowblade. There you go. So now I can Mark for Death, reapply this. There you go. Okay. So now I want to do as many finisher as I can to refresh the cooldown of my Shadow Dance. Okay. So this is my goal right now. I can do 1 more Eviscerate, maybe before this comes back up, and then I'm gonna refresh this. Okay, refresh, and then we go into a single dance symbol. There you go. This is your single dance symbol. You try to do as many Shadow Strike as you can. It's okay if your last Eviscerate doesn't go in. That's going to happen sometimes. Then you refresh. There you go. And now you're going to try to do as many finishers as you can to refresh your remaining Shadow Dance, okay? And usually, if you're lucky enough, it's going to come back up for your second symbol, okay? So you go into your second dance. There you go. And then you do as many as you can. And there you go. It's back up. You can do your second one and line it up. It's going to line up right into it. Remember, never refresh Nightblade during your Symbol of Death and Shadow Dance. Remember, that's going to be a very big DPS loss. Okay, so I'm just going to go over it again for the single target rotation. It's very straightforward, okay? So Shadowblade is going to be very important. You want to Mark for Death before the pull. So 18 to 20 seconds before pull. As soon as you're about to pull, so 1 or 2 seconds before actually pulling the boss, you're going to pop Shadowblade and your DPS potion, okay? As soon as that's done, you're going to enter combat using Shadow Strike, Nightblade. Then you're going to go into your first Shadow Dance, Symbol of Death. You're going to press Shadow Strike once or twice, depending on if you're at 3 or 4 and more combo points. So you're going to build... The goal here is always to use a finisher at 5 or more combo points. And you don't want to waste Shadow Strike. So never press Shadow Strike at 4 combo point if you're not using Deeper Stratagem. If you are using Deeper Stratagem, then you can use Shadow Strike at 4 combo points, okay? But if you're not, only press it at 3 or less, okay? So it's going to be, usually after entering your first Shadow Dance Symbol of Death, it's going to be 1 Shadow Strike, 2 Shadow Strike, Eviscerate. 1 Shadow Strike, 2 Shadow Strike. You can go for your Eviscerate, or you can also refresh your Shadow Dance, because your first Shadow Dance is going to be falling off. So you can refresh it, Eviscerate, Shadow Strike, Eviscerate. Okay? So of course, if your secret technique, you want to replace your Eviscerate with your secret technique for the first one. Okay? If you're playing with Enveloping Shadow. Okay, so what's the difference with Enveloping Shadow? Well, it's actually a little bit easier, because every Symbol of Death, you'll be able to use 2 Shadow. Okay? So let me show you how does that look like. So you can go into your opener. Okay. So there you go. On my next Symbol of Death, okay, now I can use Mark for Death. I want to reduce this as much as possible, so that I can use 2 of them. I already have 2, actually. So all I need to do is wait for Symbol of Death to come back up, right? I want to reapply this before going into it. So reapply it. Shadow Dance. There you go. 1, 2, finisher. 1, 2, finisher, dance, 1, 2, finisher, 1, and 2, and finisher. Okay, so I had time to do it into the symbol window, okay? So after you're done doing your symbol window with your 2 dance, you want to reapply Nightblade and keep on going, spamming some Eviscerate. Make sure you see and check your symbol cooldown bit, because the goal is that every time this is about to come off cooldown, this needs to be applied for at least 10 seconds so that you can enter your burst window for the full duration without this falling off. That's the main goal, okay? So, as you can see, I'm able to do a lot of good DPS, and as soon as this falls off, okay, there you go. I do my last Eviscerate. There we go. Okay, then mark for that, reapply it. Pretty simple, right? Okay. This is why you don't want to mark for death inside of your Shadow Dance, because this is going to be a DPS loss, okay? So this is it for the single target rotation. Shadow Focus is always going to be taken, because otherwise you're going to be starving for energy. So this is going to increase a lot your DPS while in Shadow Dance. And the rotation is pretty much going to change depending on deeper stratagem, mark for death, or enveloping shadow, dark shadow, or master and secret technique. So, of course, one last thing that I forgot to show you is when you're out of Shadow Dance and you're about to lose Find Weakness. Okay, so we're just gonna simulate that. Okay, so we're just gonna go into a rotation. Okay, so I don't have any dents anymore, and Find Weakness is about to run off. Okay, so it's about to run up. So what I do is, as soon as there is 1 second left, so as soon as there is 1 second or 2 seconds left, usually what you want to do is you want to vanish and reapply it with Shadow Strike, okay? So usually you do something like that, and then it's going to reapply it. So this means that it's going to keep rolling out until you can start doing your next Shadow Dance symbol of death, because this is a big increase in DPS, okay? So this reduce and bypass 40% of your target enemy armor. It's a big DPS increase. So make sure you use Vanish only for that, especially, well, pretty much only in PVE situation, of course, but yeah, make sure you keep Find Weakness active on your target. So this is going to be it for the single target rotation. Okay, so now we'll talk about the AoE rotation. Subtlety is a very unique spec in that way, is that you're going to use AoE situation to do more damage, but the damage is mostly going to come out on a single target. This is why Subtlety is very good in Mythic, because you're going to burst a target very quickly. For example, if there is a skull, a target that needs to die in priority, you're going to do a lot of damage, especially if there is multiple target around this one. And the reason for that is going to be because of Shuriken Storm and Shuriken combo. Every time that you Shuriken Storm, first you're going to generate a lot more combo points, okay? So you're going to generate a lot more combo point than a regular backstab or Shadow Strike, okay? And you're going to gain something called Shuriken combo that does increase the damage of your next Eviscerate. So you can go to 5 stack with this, and it's going to increase the damage of your next Eviscerate by 40%. This scales a lot with Mastery, okay? So that's going to do a lot of damage. You also have Secret Technique. While it is not being buffed by Shuriken combo, it does a lot of damage and also does AoE damage. So it's going to do very high damage on single target, and it's going to hit the nearby target as well. Not for as much, but it's still going to generate a lot of damage, okay? Don't check the DPS right now. These are low-level dummies, so it's gonna do a lot more damage than expected, okay? So we're gonna cover a basic AoE rotation for Subtlety Rogue, and what is nice is that you can kind of change it. However, if something needs to die more quickly, then you can prioritize some stuff on your single target. But usually, if your target is going to last at least a good 10 to 20 seconds, so the duration of a Nightblade, okay, you want to apply it. It's very good to apply it. If it's not gonna last 10 seconds, then don't even. It's not really useful unless you're trying to burst, okay? But usually, what you want to do is you want to open and you want to apply Nightblade as soon as possible, okay? And then you want to build combo point using your AoE, okay? I opened on the target with Shadow Strike just so I could get Find Weakness. That's something that you can keep on the target, but only if this is a priority target. If it's not a priority target and you don't care, you can simply go ahead and ignore this. Simply keep Nightblade on, because a lot of your damage is going to come from your finisher. So you might as well Nightblade one target, okay? And then you do as many Secret Technique / Eviscerate as you can, okay? You can even use Mark for Dead a lot in AoE situations, since mobs are going to die very quickly and you're going to do a lot of damage, okay? If the target around you and around your target are going to die, are going to last over 16 seconds, then it is worth applying Nightblade to them. This complicates the rotation a little, so you can go ahead and do Nightblade, okay? Nightblade, and you can keep focusing one, okay? And you can even apply Find Weakness to it. There you go, and you can do a lot of burst damage, okay? That's gonna do your most optimal damage. And then you can go back and, you know, just reapply Nightblade. But this is going to yield you the most AoE damage, okay? Only if targets are going to last for the full duration. But if you're doing Mythic and a target is marked as Skull and you want it to die as quickly as possible, then I recommend that you do not do this. Because your role as a Subtlety Rogue is usually going to be killing very, very high priority targets very quickly, okay? So what I recommend doing is that you open with Shadow Strike, Nightblade, and then you can do a simple opener just like that, okay? You can simply reapply this and you simply keep spamming, right? You simply keep spamming. It's very, very easy to do. You never want to backstab ever, okay? So the rule is, if you're not into Shadow Dance, so backstab is the only thing available to you, okay? So it's 2 target and plus. So if there is 2 target in range, so as you can see right now, my WEAKAURA is letting me know that I should use Shuriken Storm. Okay, so right now I only have 1 target in range, okay? As soon as I get in 2 target range, Shuriken Storm is lighting up in my WEAKAURA, letting you know you should replace backstab with Shuriken Storm. The reason is it's gonna do more combo point generation than backstab, okay? So it generates 2 instead of 1, okay? And it's also going to increase the damage of your finisher. So right now, Shuriken Storm with 2 target is better. If you are in Shadow Dance, then 2 target is not enough. Shadow Strike is still better than Shuriken Storm for 2 target. But if you're in Shadow Dance and you are near 3 target, then the threshold becomes 3, okay? So as soon as you have 3 target, you need to make sure that so the WEAKAURA works with nameplate, okay? So nameplate need to be near you, and they need to be visually seen in your viewport, if you want me to say it like that. So for example, if I do this, the WEAKAURA is not going to work because it's not able to know if there is any enemy nearby. It has to see the nameplate. So you have to activate them, and you have to have them in your viewport, okay? So if you play with your camera further away and you can see all the nameplates, there you go. This is going to help you a lot. So you're going to be able to see, okay, so now I have to backstab. Okay, so now I need to Shuriken Storm. Now if I go into Shadow Dance, oh shit, now it's Shadow Strike, but now 3 target. Okay, Shuriken Storm is better. So it's pretty easy to remember. You don't need to use this WEAKAURA in order to know this. I mean, so outside of Shadow Dance, when backstab is your only available option, it's 2 target or more. During Shadow Dance, when Shadow Strike is active, it's 3 target or more. So over 3 target during Shadow Dance, you Shuriken Storm. Over 2 target outside of Shadow Dance, you Shuriken Storm. Other than that, you backstab and Shadow Strike. Okay, so the AoE rotation is very easy. Usually for AoE rotation, you're gonna have Dark Shadow, so your finisher and your secret technique are gonna do a lot of damage. Okay, so if you're using a single target build, but you have to encounter some AoE, you're still gonna perform good. It's not gonna be as good, but you're still gonna do well because you're gonna have a lot of Shadow Dance to go through, because this is gonna refresh very, very, very quickly. Okay, so for example, if I spam finisher like that, okay, my Shadow Dance is coming off cooldown very, very quickly. Because I'm not spending a lot of time building resources, I'm just spamming finishers, okay? And Shadow Dance is gonna be very, very helpful for AoE damage, because it's gonna reduce the energy cost of your Storm, and it's gonna reduce the energy cost of your finisher, but it's also going to increase your damage by a lot, okay? So if you don't have it, of course it's not, but it's not a big deal, okay? So the AoE rotation is very simple. You want to keep Nightblade on all targets that are going to last long enough to have it deal its full damage, so 16 seconds. If you want to prioritize a target, I recommend to not spread Nightblade. Simply stick to one target, Nightblade, find weakness that target, and burst as much finisher as you can using your Shuriken combo and your secret technique. You're going to see you're going to be topping Methers pretty quickly if you follow those simple steps. Okay, let's now talk about macros. I don't think there is a lot of macro that you need to play Subtlety. I use some very generic one, and since I'm not using a different bar for my my stealth and Shadow Dance state, I'm not really using anything different. Okay, so as soon as I press stealth, this becomes available, so I don't need to do any kind of weird tricks I don't need to use any weird tricks with some macros that are detecting stance and everything, since now stealth bar is the exact same as Shadow Dance bar. So there's no need to have any of those macroed. This is very easy to do. All you need to do is have all of your stealth abilities be in your main bar, and you can just place them in every single bar. So it becomes very easy to manage because your bar doesn't keep flashing on and off. That's personal preference, but there you go. That's a little tip from me. And then we're going to go into some macro that I use. Okay, so one macro that you saw earlier was the cooldown macro. So it's going to use either Vendetta, Adrenaline, or Shadow Blade, depending on what spec you're playing. And then it's going to use your Potion of Prolonged Power or any DPS potion that you want to use. Of course, there's the Focus Kick, Focus Kidney, Focus Cheap Shot that you can use in Mythic Plus to CC target and all that good stuff. So Focus Sap doesn't really matter. Okay, I use this macro. You guys can check my macro video, by the way. It's going to be a lot more in depth, but I'm still going to show it in here. So I use a macro that detects if I'm using Shuriken Tornado or Secret Technique. So it's going to change based on my talent, and it's going to use my Trinket also in this macro. I don't use a Trinket in the opening macro because it's gonna get you out of stealth. So you don't want to try to drink a flask or shake some dice. I don't know. It used to bug if I was using the Trinket in my opener macro, so I put them into some rotational ability, since you're going to be pressing your Secret Technique pretty early in your rotation. So that's going to go in there. You can also do them before casting the spell. It's all up to you. Usually what I recommend is having a separate binding for your Trinket and pressing that manually, but that's also a good reminder if you have a short cooldown DPS Trinket, like 1 minute or something like that. This is for Assassination. Okay, so this is going to be my AoE macro. So this is going to do Shuriken Tornado and Shuriken Storm. So you can use both of those. So it's either going to be a modifier alt. So scroll down is Shuriken combo, and alt is going to be Tornado. So instead of Storm, it's Tornado. Sorry, not combo. Combo is the buff that you receive. And this one, yeah, so this one is another version. So you can use either one of those. Mouse over Shadow Step. So that's only useful if you want to kind of move quickly through the battlefield or do some cool stuff, okay? I'm simply using a Shroud of Concealment and Stealth with Mud Shift. So this is simply to save me a keybind. This is not something very useful. It's just there to save me some space. Tricks is simply a focus. So I put my tank in focus most of the time in dungeon, and this allows me to trick them pretty easily. So I can burst my threat onto them. And that's gonna pretty much be it. I don't use a lot of macros for the rotation, the DPS rotation for Subtlety. It's just very straightforward. I'm mostly using focus macros, and that's pretty much it. And one mouse over for Shadow Step. So there's a lot of good one that you can use, and I really recommend that you check out a website called Ravenhold, okay? So Ravenhold is going to cover a lot of information. This is the website of the guy over on Discord. They have a lot of good information about gear, talent, traits, Azerite, and some useful macro. So if you want to do some Shadow Strike, Shadow Strike macro, all that cool stuff. Frequently asked questions. So I make sure you guys visit that. This is where I pick a lot of my information for this guide. So I'll leave the link in the comment below. If you guys like this video, make sure you leave a comment, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can also come visit me on Twitch, because I do most of my recording live on Twitch, and we have a very nice community. You can come chat with us, have some fun. We're nice people, I think. So if you guys want to come join us, that would be amazing. Make sure you come leave me a follow, say a few words, and that will make me very happy. Thanks a lot for the support. This was my Subtlety video guide, and I'll be coming up next with some other spec and other class. So until then, good luck in BFA, guys.